Man was on the ground for 3 days and 3 nights, but he didn't dare to breathe because there was a cliff below him. If he's not careful, he'll fall. Jack desperately clasps the ground with his fingers, but the quicksand can't bear his weight. The whole man began to fall rapidly. In order to increase the friction, Jack had to press his head against the ground, using his face as a brake. It's barely slowing down the slide, but what's even more embarrassing, the mobile phone in the backpack kept ringing. It must be his wife's call, but as soon as he lifts his hand, his body will continue to fall. On one side, there's a cliff with no bottom. On the other side is his wife's phone. To answer or not to answer? Jack thought it over. He decided to answer the phone because he was more afraid of his wife than of dying. But the moment he grabbed the mobile phone, his body slid sharply downwards again. He slid all the way to the edge of the cliff. Luckily, at the last moment, Jack used all his strength to get stuck on the cliff. By now fear had spread throughout his body. Jack looked down at the sea. Suddenly he was mumbling something. It turns out that he was calculating the time when the waves hit the shore. If he could jump in the moment the waves came up, he might still have a chance of survival. But if the plan fails, he will die instantly. After a lot of agonizing, Jack timed his jump to release his hands. Fortunately, he managed to jump into the water. And yet, unfortunately, due to the force of the impact, the lower part of his body still hit the reef. Jack had to swim out of the water with great pain and crawled desperately towards the shore. Once on shore, Jack rushed to check his injuries. Good thing it's just a flesh wound. Jack didn't pay much attention to it, but when he was about to leave, he did not expect a slip of the foot. He fell headfirst onto the rocks and fainted. When he woke up again, not only did he have a gash on his head, he also suffered a serious injury to his lower back. It caused a misalignment of the spine. Jack had lost all feeling in his legs except for his toes. Suddenly, the man remembers that he hasn't returned his wife's call. He was so scared that he took out his mobile phone, but this phone isn't waterproof at all. It doesn't work anymore. This is really the end. The man cries out for help in desperation. Just as Jack was about to give up, suddenly a surfboard is washed up by the sea. The hope of survival was rekindled. Jack struggled to crawl forward on his disabled legs, but the fierce waves didn't give him a chance to catch his breath. It slammed him against the rocks. The blow to his head knocked him unconscious. In a few moments, the sea began to rise. Jack was slowly swept out to sea. Luckily, Jack woke up in time. Seeing that the waves are getting bigger and bigger, he escaped by hastily hanging his rucksack on a reef. Suddenly, there was a helicopter in the sky. Jack tried to call for help, but humans are too small in front of the sea. In the end, all he could do was watch the plane leave. After a while, the tide finally went out, and a seagull took him for food. The sharp pain brought Jack to his senses instantly. He struggled to unzip his rucksack and crept towards the beach with difficulty. At this point Jack hadn't had a drink of water in over 30 hours.